Okay, let's jump right in. You probably remember, maybe vividly, that weirdness around June 12th, 13th, 2025.
Oh, wow.
Maybe your Spotify cut out mid-song, or Discord just went silent, or you couldn't get that Snapchat story up.
Right.
For literally millions of people, huge chunks of the internet just blinked out.
Vanished, yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a really detailed report about that massive global internet outage.
Hmm.
Our goal here is to get past the my app isn't working frustration and really understand the tech behind it.
The why.
Exactly. What technically went wrong? How wide did it actually spread? And maybe most importantly, why does this one specific glitch matter so much for, well, how the internet is built today?
It's a big wake-up call, really.
So first up, what did it actually look like for users? The report lays out a pretty messy scene.
Yeah, it wasn't subtle.
We're talking Spotify like freezing during playback, people getting locked out, Discord users, voice, text, even uploading files just failed across huge regions.
Totally unusable for many.
Snapchatters couldn't post stories, couldn't chat properly, and that character.ai service.
Completely offline. Just
Yeah,
gone for hours.
right. And even Google's own Cloud Console, the tool developers use, was hit with unavailability or serious slowdowns.
Which is pretty telling.
And it wasn't just those big names. Seems like tons of other apps that use Cloudflare's CDN or have their backend running on Google Cloud were reporting major headaches.
And the geographical spread was, well, it was huge. North America, Europe, Southeast Asia, Australia.
Oh.
While the absolute worst of it, the total blackout for some services was maybe 2 to 3 hours.
Hmm.
The instability, the slow loading, all those lingering problems, they dragged on for another, 8 to 10 hours easily? It left a massive footprint.
Okay, affecting that many different services all across the globe pretty much at the same time. It really begs the question, how? What was the single point of failure here, according to the report?
Yeah, the report's pretty clear on pointing the finger at one main area.
Yeah.
A major hiccup inside Google Cloud's global load balancers.
Load balancers. Those are like the internet's traffic cops, right?
Yeah.
Directing everyone where to go.
Exactly. They're crucial. Their job is to take all the incoming requests from users like you and me and distribute them efficiently to the right servers.
Okay.
The report strongly suggests that either a critical misconfiguration, like someone typed the wrong thing, or maybe a software update that went sideways, applied to these specific load balancers was the trigger. And when those traffic cops suddenly started giving bad directions or just stopped directing traffic altogether,
Chaos.
total chaos. Services relying on them just couldn't be reached. That's why you saw all those generic but frustrating errors like 502 bad gateway or 503 service unavailable.
Or the app just crashing.
Or the app just crashing because it couldn't talk to its own brain, basically, its back end.
Now, the report also mentioned Cloudflare having problems. Were they part of the initial cause, or was that more of a domino effect?
It really looks like Cloudflare was caught in the blast radius.
Eh.
More domino effect, amplifying the problem rather than starting it. You see, lots of services have these really complex setups now. They might use Google Cloud for the heavy lifting, the computing, the storage.
Right.
But then they use Cloudflare for other stuff, like their CD and the content delivery network. That puts website parts closer to you so things load faster.
Yeah, I know CDN.
Or they use Cloudflare for DNS, which is kind of like the internet's address book.
Gotcha.
So when the core services running on Google Cloud started failing, Cloudflare systems, which were trying to connect to those broken Google Cloud services, suddenly saw masses of errors, proxy errors, DNS lookups failing.
So Cloudflare wasn't failing on its own. It was failing because it couldn't reach the failing Google services.
Precisely. It's a complex chain reaction, absolutely. But the evidence points pretty strongly to Google Cloud's load balancer issue being the spark that lit the fire.
Okay, that makes sense. So stepping back from the pure tech, this is where it gets, I think, really important. Why does this outage, even though things did come back online eventually, matter so much? What's the bigger picture here?
Well, what's really telling about this whole event, and the report really hammers this home, is what it reveals about the way the modern internet is actually built.
How so?
First, it's a really stark demonstration of this idea of overconcentration. So much of the digital stuff we use every single day,
Yeah.
from the biggest streaming platforms down to niche AI tools, increasingly depends on a surprisingly small number of massive cloud companies like Google Cloud, AWS, Azure.
The big three, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And when a key piece inside just one of those giants has a bad day, like Google's load balancers did, it can set off this cascade of failures that jumps across continents and takes down services that, on the surface, seem totally unrelated.
It's like having only a few major highway bridges for the whole country. One goes out.
Exactly. Instant gridlock everywhere, even miles away. That's a great analogy.
And you mentioned this idea of sauce chain reactions or platform-on-platform problems. How did this outage shine a light on that specific vulnerability?
Oh, absolutely. This was like a textbook example of the fragility you get when you build platforms on top of other platforms.
Yeah.
Think about Character.ai or parts of Spotify or Discord. They aren't running entirely on their own servers they built from scratch.
No, of course not.
They rely on these foundational layers provided by others. Google Cloud for the core computing power, maybe Cloudflare for speeding up delivery and security.
Layer upon layer.
Exactly. So when Google Cloud stumbled, it didn't just affect Google stuff. It meant anything built on top of Google Cloud also started wobbling or falling over. And then if that service, the one built on Google Cloud, also used Cloudflare, well, then Cloudflare starts seeing errors trying to reach the already failing service.
Wow, it's like a stack of dominoes, but they're all interconnected in weird ways.
That's a good way to put it. The dependencies mean a problem way down at the bottom can ripple upwards and outwards through multiple services almost instantly.
And the report also touched on the economic side of this, the money lost.
Oh, it's huge.
Sure.
Even for just a few hours of major disruption. The report used Spotify as a really clear case. Apparently, they stream something like 500,000 songs every minute.
That's incredible.
So you take that kind of volume, and even a 2 or 3 hour outage where people can't stream or log in, you're looking at potentially millions in lost revenue. From ads, from premium subscriptions people couldn't use.
Just for Spotify alone.
Just for Spotify. Now, multiply that. Think about all the businesses, big and small, running their sales platforms, their customer support systems, their internal tools on Google Cloud.
Right. It's not just consumer apps.
Not at all. A few hours of downtime for them means lost sales, lost productivity, customer frustration. The financial hit is massive, even if it's harder to calculate right away. It's very, very real.
So if we crystallize this, looking through the report's analysis, what are the absolute key takeaways, the big lessons learned here?
The report really boils it down to a few critical points. Number one, it just reinforces this major concern about single points of failure. This incident made it crystal clear. When you centralize so much critical infrastructure with just a few providers, a problem in one place can have disproportionately huge effects. Too many eggs in one basket, basically. It also really highlighted what seems to be a lack of resilient routing in some setups, meaning the fact that traffic couldn't just automatically and seamlessly find a way around the failing Google load balancers.
Yeah.
That suggests maybe current systems need better ways to reroute on the fly.
Like smarter traffic management.
Yeah, maybe pushing harder for multi-cloud strategies where you're not solely reliant on one provider, or more sophisticated edge routing that makes decisions closer to the user away from the central choke point.
Okay. And what about communication during the crisis? That always seems to be a sticking point in these outages.
It absolutely is, and the report definitely called out issues around cloud status transparency. Apparently, many businesses and developers felt that Google's public status updates, their dashboards and official communications were a bit slow off the mark, or maybe not detailed enough in the initial hours about what was actually going wrong.
Leaving people guessing.
Exactly. And when your own service is down because of a provider issue, that guessing game is incredibly frustrating. Timely, clear, honest communication is just vital for managing the downstream chaos.
Makes sense.
And finally, the report really underscored the importance of audit trail accountability, having thorough post-incident reports, post-mortems. It's not just about learning technically what broke.
It's about trust.
It's fundamentally about trust. Businesses and users who rely on these platforms need to know what happened, why it happened, and crucially, what concrete steps are being taken to prevent it from happening again. Transparency builds trust.
Okay, so turning it around, how did they actually fix it? What did the recovery process look like according to the report?
Well, piecing together the report and the public statements, it seems like the main fix involved a coordinated effort. Google obviously identified the issue internally, and both they and Cloudflare started updating their status pages to show, we're seeing elevated error rates, that kind of thing.
Acknowledging the problem.
Acknowledging it, yes. The core solution, reportedly, was to roll back whatever configuration change or software update they figured out had triggered the load balancer meltdown.
Undoing the mistake, essentially.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And alongside that, they almost certainly did some manual traffic rerouting, actively steering data flows away from the broken parts of the system while that rollback was happening and stabilizing.
And that whole process, getting things back to normal, wasn't instant even after they found the cause.
No, definitely not. While the absolute peak disruption, the worst of it, lasted maybe those 2 to 3 hours,
Yeah.
getting everything fully stable again, getting all the traffic flowing normally worldwide, that took something like 6 to 8 hours from when the incident first hit.
Wow.
It just shows you, even with sophisticated systems and recovery plans, fixing something at that global scale takes time. There's no magic undo button for the entire internet.
So, zooming back out again, what are the longer-term consequences? What did the report suggest might change because of this, the sort of ripple effects?
Oh, this event is definitely going to add fuel to some already simmering debates and probably accelerate a few trends.
Like what?
Well, one big one is this idea of cloud sovereignty.
Meaning countries wanting their own clouds.
That's sort of, yeah.
Oh.
Or at least reducing reliance on a few predominantly U.S.-based global giants. You might see more talk, maybe even government pressure, in different regions to build up more localized or national cloud infrastructure. It's framed as an issue of national digital resilience.
Interesting.
And for businesses, especially big ones, this is a massive flashing red light for their enterprise CIOs, the tech chiefs.
They must have been tearing their hair out.
You bet. They're almost certainly going to be pushing much harder now for real, demonstrable redundancy strategies.
So not just saying they have backups.
Right. Seriously looking into multi-cloud setups, using AWS for some things, Google Cloud for others, Azure for backups, maybe, or even bringing some absolutely critical functions back on-premise onto their own servers.
Huh, back to the old ways almost.
For certain things, maybe, or exploring edge computing, more processing data closer to where it's generated or needed instead of sending everything back to a central cloud data center that could go down.
So really rethinking architectures.
Fundamentally rethinking risk and resilience, yes.
Yeah.
And connected to that risk. The report also noted a likely uptick in interest for specialized insurance policies covering cloud downtime.
Ah, cyber insurance, but specifically for this.
Exactly. Businesses are now painfully aware of just how much money they could lose, even in a few hours, when these foundational services blink out. So insuring against that specific kind of financial loss, that's probably going to look a lot more attractive now.
So when you put it all together, this outage in June 2025, it wasn't just a blip, a temporary hassle. The report really positions it as a very real world, very stark demonstration of how incredibly interconnected everything is online now.
Yeah.
And maybe how surprisingly fragile that interconnectedness can be. These cloud native services we all lean on every day. They're built in these complex layers, like you said.
Yeah.
And a failure way down in one fundamental layer can just explode upwards and outwards with, frankly, terrifying speed and scope.
It really can. And maybe the final thought to leave people with, thinking about this bigger picture.
Yeah.
Given just how deeply layered and interdependent everything is now, and how we've just seen a single point of failure ripple across whole continents, what does that really mean for how we should design the internet going forward? Is concentrating so much power and function in just a handful of these massive centralized providers the most robust path? Or are there different choices we need to make as users, as developers, as policymakers to build a global digital ecosystem that's fundamentally more resilient, more resistant to these kinds of cascading failures we saw back in June?
That's a huge question.
It is, and it goes way beyond just hoping the cloud providers fix their load balancers faster next time. It's about the underlying structure of our digital world.